Good morning, depending on where you are tuning in from, or if you are watching us on replay. This is The Awesome Journey, and I am your host, Kelly Steinicke, along with my very special guest co host, Kindra Maple, owner of Culture Crush. And for those of you who are new, and just to recap, one of the main purposes that we wanted to do with The Awesome Journey was to highlight some incredible individuals to share their unique stories and challenges, because let's face it, we're all united in our personal journeys. And today I'm extra happy to have our guest with us, Amy Looper, who I met at one of Kindra's Culture Crush networking events in Phoenix. So, any of you who are local in Phoenix, do watch out for Culture Crush networking events. They are so worthwhile because it's meaningful connection, which I'm all about. And we are in a little bit of a shortened frame today, or time frame today. So I want to get right over now to my very special guest, co-host, Miss Kindra Maples.
Yay. I'm so excited that I get to do this again, although I'm really sad that Christy's coming back from vacation because now my job goes back to your original co-host. So whenever she needs to go on vacation again, you got the dogs, I got the co-host spot.
You got it.
So
You
we
always
have
got
those
a place
covered.
here, girl.
Yes, I love it. I'm so excited for today because I get to loop in Amy again, who, like Kelly, you mentioned, we had her as one of our speakers for our quarterly culture event that we did in April. And we talked all about women and business and, what it looks like when you have to maybe leave on maternity leave and then you come back, and how do you have that balance with, or if it is a balance, right? With being that, badass woman in business, but also being a badass mom and growing on that side. And so I'm super excited, Amy, to be able to bring you in, and how fun that you get to be the one in the conversation and then I get to join again. So I am so excited for that. So, Amy, I'm going to toss it straight to you. We're going to start with, tell us a little bit about you, your background, and how you kind of got into this beautiful niche that you're in now.
Yeah, thanks, ladies. Thanks for having me on. You've done a phenomenal job with your show and transformation. I love it. Yeah, really, you know, 18 years plus in sales and leadership, where the industry is came from. Really hit a point of burnout after many years. After many years camera here for just a second because I think there might be some connectivity issues, so I'm going to try that. Essentially, you know, I came out of that like having like chronic stress. We had a lot of stuff in our personal lives with some family members, and so just needed to take a break, but not really knowing how to do it. And so question really became, you know, what's next? And I really had to go through a lot of transformational leadership work myself to overcome a lot of type A kind of chronic stress things that happen to us, you know, when we're driven, ambitious individuals. So would love to dive into that if your listeners are wanting some more tips on how to do that.
Yeah, awesome. And I think so, because I think that first little part of the audio until you shut your camera off was a little bit, it was inaudible for me. I could pick up every few words. So apologies for asking you to do this again, but do maybe another quick summation of what you just said. And again, apologies, but I think it was probably very difficult for some to understand what you were saying.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no problem. Gotta love when the internet goes down.
Right? And
that's live.
Knowing your story, but yeah, now we can. If you want to give us a little more insight about, you know, how you got into this and how you were talking about, you know, the postpartum and that kind of space.
Yeah. So I had to just work after lived experience, right? I just mentioned that I had gone through a lot of years through the early years of having kids. I had postpartum depression and birth trauma. I talk about this a lot. So if you've ever watched my content, you've heard me talk a lot about maternal mental health conditions like postpartum depression. And then we had a lot of grief in our family after a family member had committed suicide. And so it was just a lot of things that had happened in a short amount of time. Ultimately, I hit burnout. I tried to deny it. I tried to put on the fake smile for many, many, many years. And I did okay. I was highly functioning. But eventually it all, led up to a place where early 2020, I really just needed to take a break, and I needed to really pivot and shift and live my life in a different way. And therein lies the opening of transformation. It was really, a journey of transformational leadership, mindset work that really helped me break through some of those years.
Wow, that's incredible, and thank you for that. And we do apologize because there's definitely some internet connection, but that's what happens when we go live. So, Amy, I mean, there's so many things about what you just said that I think someone or multiple people will be able to relate to at least a portion of what you said. Just sometimes being a woman in corporate America, especially at the level where you're performing, that alone is a big enough stress of whether it's the competition or just the internal stress that you get from that. But then adding these other layers of motherhood, postpartum, etc., and then of course of family tragedy. And then when you burned out, and my understanding, if I'm saying this correctly, and please do correct me if I'm wrong, is that you left your position, and then then a few weeks later 2020 happened. So it was kind of like whoa and whoa and whoa, and here's another smack. And how was that, transition, truthfully, and then your overall transition, because that was certainly something that impacted all of us, but with you having all those other things, I would imagine it impacted you certainly, differently because of your situation.
Actually, the pandemic for me was awesome.
Yes, I love that.
Really, well, and here's why. So it really was God's protection over me because I had gone through so much during the former years. I look at so many of my clients now that had babies during the pandemic, became parents, and they really are struggling. They're struggling to this day. I really feel like it was God's, protection on me during that phase because I was able to be flexible. I was able to say, hey, please fire me from this job, like, even though I'm doing and I'm doing really well.
Oh, we might have lost her.
And a place to grow. When we're vulnerable, we're open to really a lot of transformation.
Yeah, I can.
Amy, you're in
Can you
fast
hear?
forward mode right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I almost feel like, because now it's like, oh, we didn't hear that part. Um,
Mhm.
Amy unfortunately has been having difficulty with her connection this morning, and she did say, hey, I'm having trouble. Hopefully, I can get logged in. But for the sake of all of this, because Amy's story really is so important, and I want to be sure that we're
Yeah.
sharing it where everybody can hear it, because I know it will impact so many of you. So, what I would like to do at this point is just say, Amy, we'd love to have you back at another time and reschedule, because I don't want people to miss out. Because the part you just said, and I know a big part of your story, it's so important and imperative to move forward and all of the things, and I don't want people to miss out on it. So let's go ahead and we will reschedule for another time, and we apologize to everyone but hey, that's what happens live. Some days you got to just roll with it.
Mhm.
with it. So, and we will get you and have you back another time. And that will bring Kindra back maybe as an additional guest on that show. So look at you, Kindra, getting yourself worked into another episode. So, so that all being said, I mean, that's kind of a bummer, but thankfully Kindra and I can chat. But we do
Well,
want to be
and
sure that
then
go ahead.
no, that's what I was gonna say. You and I are here.
Yeah.
What if let's flip the script a little bit. I'm throwing this at you. What if I go into interviewer mode? So you and I get to chat a little bit, about your awesome journey.
Ooh,
Mm.
there's so many different ways that can go. Here's one that came right to mind when you said about let me turn an interview on you. Here's something that I know that people absolutely don't know is I met Miss Kendra Maple. It's just over 2 years ago ish.
Yeah.
Beginning of 2021 for sure. And I was looking for podcasts for a client of mine. And you were one that I had reached out to because I looked at Phoenix local and I had sent you his bio and you wrote me back, very kindly, and you're like, "Oh, this sounds super interesting, but this doesn't really go with our theme, our platform. What we're really looking for is XYZ with corporate culture." And I was like,
Mhm.
"Huh, well, I've done all of those things." So I was
Yeah.
like, "Well, I'm not trying to pitch myself, but here's what I've done." And she wrote back and she was like, "Oh my gosh, you're perfect." So Kindra is the initial person that gave me the bug in podcasting to begin with because her and I got on a call. Of course,
Mhm.
I mean, talk about instant friends, adored her immediately. I was her show, like, man, that was super fun.
Mhm.
And that was where the seed was planted. So it's just kind of funny how things sort of end up full
Mm.
circle. We ended up always in touch and doing things kind of together because I do some things with Kendra's Culture Crush. I've been on her advisory board to grow her business. And
Mhm.
so that's the part of this awesome journey that has brought me in front of
Oh,
this microphone at this time on the awesome journey. And it's just interesting that you asked that. And I immediately had to go there because you are part of
yeah.
the reason that I ended up here.
And I love that. And that to me is what puts the importance. I just had this conversation with James Christensen, the CEO of Gateway Bank. We just had this conversation the other day of building relationships, the importance of building relationships, the importance of being open to where the relationship could go. And so many times, I don't hear it as much now, but I heard it back in the day of, oh, well, it's business, it's not personal.
Yes.
BS, it is personal.
Yes, it is.
I mean, if you're choosing, right? If you're choosing where to bank or who your financial advisor is or who you mentioned it, who I have on my advisory board for Culture Crush. Like that's the business I'm growing. I want to make sure I'm growing it in the right direction. I'm not bringing anybody into that mix. And so when people say, "Oh, it's just business, it's not personal." No, it is. It very much is personal. And, to that point of bringing you in and bringing you on the podcast, oh my gosh, almost 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
That was, for me, such a beautiful, like, start to our relationship, right? Because I got to bring you on and you got to highlight a little bit of the company you were working with, right? But
Mhm.
I didn't want that CEO on. I wanted you talk about that culture and the culture building and the relationship building. And to me, that's what then leads to the the pieces and the foundation of everything else, right? You and I were just
Yes.
talking about job searching. It's no
Yes.
longer submit a resume. Okay, it's out there. I just sit and wait for a phone call. It's
Mm-mm.
using your connections, your relationships, having those conversations, right?
Yes, and I think, I do wanna say, hi, Aunt Bimbola, it's so good to see you.
Yes.
Um, and John McDonald, and Donald was here, Cohen, God
Yep.
bless him, he's always such a big supporter. Um, And, like John says here, building relationships, the information you need to know. And I agree with that
Mhm.
100%. And here's one of the things, to piggyback on what you just said, Kindra, and going into part of my awesome journey on the business side is the beginning of this year. I was, there was several things that I was praying for and wanted to do. The awesome journey was definitely one that came out of that. The
Mhm.
other was that I wanted to be more purposeful in my networking. I didn't want to
Mm.
do like, because the old days, you would go to networking events, and I hadn't had to do personal networking in a long time, but you would go and people would exchange business cards. And to me, it was always just a glorified happy hour. And it was like, wah, wah.
Yeah.
I got absolutely nothing out of it. And then that's part of what you're doing with your Culture Crush events. So even
Mhm.
here on being that they're meaningful, you don't ask people, what's your title? What do you
Mhm.
do? It's like, hey, I like to do the same thing and have a conversation. Like you're creating human connection.
Yeah.
And that's what we're wanting to do. And I feel like so many of the LinkedIn lives that I've done, here and with Donald Cohen on the Hour of Empower, I'm also there on Thursdays, um, is it is about true human connection. I've had so many amazing Zoom calls with people. And the whole point is, even if you can't possibly, or maybe you can't work together, or there's not that synergy because there's just some people that it's like, oh, well, you're a financial engineer, not my jam. But if I know anybody, you never know
Yeah,
what
yeah.
door is opening from a conversation. And one of the things that I absolutely cannot stand on LinkedIn, and people, y'all need to listen to this loud and clear, when you connect with someone for the first time and you pitch slap them in their inbox immediately,
Oh,
you don't even know what I
yes.
do, have any idea if I need your thing. You're just trying to make a transaction instead of a human connection. And I
Yep.
just feel like so many people are so hungry for it and are just so sick of the BS. Like, let's just get to see, hey, we have things in common, we can work together, or you just need to go
Yep.
make a transaction in sales somewhere else because I'm not your girl.
I had the best one in my inbox the other day. They were pitching, if I knew anybody that had a podcast, and I was like, "What? Did
Did
you
you look at
even"
my profile?
I was like, "Did you even read anything?" And I'm really strategic on my about me section because it says, "Yes, I focus on culture, and yes, I have a podcast." But I have a couple of funny things in there just to see, and they're all true,
Oh, yeah.
but just to see if people are gonna read it. And so I love the reach outs that say, "Oh my gosh, I love Oreo cookies too." I'm like, "Ooh, you read my about me section,"
Yes.
right?
See, that
But
was like
that
Chris
one
Hennessy with the snack hunter. That's why I was totally playing on the
yes,
snack hunter. Loved it.
like, yes. But to your point of it there wasn't even like a, "Hey, great to connect." It was
Mhm.
this blasty sale thing and asking if I knew anyone that had a podcast, and I was like, "You're not my jam."
Nope. Because you don't read.
Yes.
And it's just like, let's get back to the basics. And this is one of the things I found doing the Hour of Empower and what led me to want to do the awesome journey is I think people are just seriously so craving human connection and sick
Mhm.
of all this surface stuff. And we're led around by technology. We were isolated for way too long, and people are like, you know what? I just want to cut to the chase. Let's have a conversation and see what we can do for one another.
Yeah.
And how many people will absolutely go out of their way to do things to help out just because. Like, wow, that was such a great conversation.
Mhm.
You know what? I don't know if this will help you, but I know this person and I'm happy to do an introduction. I would love that.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for thinking of me. And it's those little things in those moments. And I know I say this a lot. I'm like, the world just needs more love. And I know I probably sound like I think it's probably from the 70s or maybe the 60s, a little before my time. But definitely the Beatles. The world needs some more love, or whoever sang that. So I apologize for not crediting that properly. But we all need that. Like, there's just too much negativity and competition. Because my
Mhm.
feeling is, you know what, girl, I want you to fly as high as possible, and I'm here to support you in any way that I can. And I love seeing other people succeed instead of
Yep.
like, ooh, I don't like what you're doing. I'm going to smack you down, and I want to be, or what do attitude of, the society that is created with the selfie. It's all about me. What can you do to help me?
Mm,
And if I can, once I'm finished getting what I need from you, I'm going to nomad on to the next person. Like, it's so
yep.
icky, and then that's part of, unfortunate, but, like, having the real relationships and conversations, and really to say that's how we started. It was a business
Yes.
sort of, interaction, but then we spoke, and then we did the show, and then we continue to speak, and it's like, "Man, I actually really dig this chick. Like, I wanna do
Right?
more with her, and what can I do to support her?"
Yes, and
You're like
now
the
it's
biggest cheerleader too.
right? And so then you build these cheerleaders, and back to what John's comment said, right? You don't know who's gonna have the information that you might need, and so you build out these beautiful relationships, and then it's so fun because I'm gaining friends through these relationships that I never would have imagined, and now I've got you as my Black Rifle coffee buddy if we
Yes.
need coffee days, right? And so building this so that we can cheer each other on, we can be the cheerleader, and then right? There goes John coming in with those
No, love
some
it.
beautiful, right?
He's another, yes, he's another just positive cheerleader. What can we do to help one another? We're all here together, and and then to round back and, toot the show maybe a little bit, but that's not the point, because we are all on this journey together. I mean, why not help each other out? Like, I'll go back and say, because it's not a competition. How can we help
Yeah,
one another? And I think
yeah.
LinkedIn, and a lot of other conversations that I've been having recently have been people who have been off LinkedIn for so long,
Mm,
and now they come back and they're just a business card or a static resume. It's so much more. And yeah, so
mhm.
what are your thoughts on that, Kendra?
I
I
like
know we
that.
can go on for days.
I well, I'm picking up on something at the end of what you said, but I love that there is a little bit more of a mix of making those connections, building those relationships. My favorite thing now is when people reach out to me and I get questions literally of, "Kendra, do you know who could dog sit for me?" Like, I love that, right?
Yeah, that's
And
great.
getting away from what you said earlier, "Oh, what you do isn't really a fit," right? I mean, there's some folks that are coming to these networking events and right, our Culture Crush events that, okay, maybe they don't work for a company and maybe they're not building a team of culture. But guess what? That culture goes into the moment you put 2 people in a room. There's culture.
Mhm.
What is the
Yep.
feel? What is right? And so I love that people are coming in from different angles, and these are some of the people that maybe I'm not doing business with them and I'm not able to kind of promote them yet or push them, but and with that being said, right, there's other angles and other just like connections through it. Um, I wanna go back, you said the word resume, and
Oh,
so
phenomenal.
that is bleh, bleh. Um, I just had a conversation with the gal the other day because like you, Kelly, right? You and I are doing contract and consulting work in the space that we're in, but we're also looking for who's that bigger company that we can support and be part of.
Mhm.
And there was a particular job description and I was looking, I don't get caught up in the title, but I was looking at the parts of it, right? And I hit every piece of it. I'm like, "Oh, this is totally my jam. This is my background. This is what I've done." And so I had a phone call with them and the lovely,
Oh,
amazing, amazing woman, uh, she'll know who she is if she's listening. We were having this conversation and she's like, "Huh, now I understand that you are a great fit." She's like, "I never would have picked that up from your LinkedIn because of the titles you have." And I said, "Well, LinkedIn is just some high points, right?
mhm.
It doesn't dig into who I am." And so I had to really express my appreciation for her for just having the conversation and not just basing it off of here's a resume, here's some titles, here's how long I was there, right? That's a really hard piece of what's happening today in the job searching world, job searching space. So I love that that is also what you are incorporating into the awesome journey is bringing
Mhm.
in recruiters. So I want you to tell us a little bit more about that space, this balance of, yes, telling your amazing story and your awesome journey, then also bringing in recruiters and folks to highlight. How did that become, because I love it, but how did that become part of this into the awesome journey that you wanted to highlight?
Well, because being that we originally I wanted to start it as a podcast, The Awesome Journey,
Mhm.
and sharing people's stories because I do believe that through all trials, tribulations, what have you, through all darkness, there's light, and just showing that no matter where you are along your path, we know it's not all great, but it
Mhm.
is really all awesome in the end. You know,
Mhm.
we both had some bumpy roads, and I wouldn't change any of it. It's because it's focus. But then when Christy and I both started doing LinkedIn lives with Don Cohen, and it was kind of like, oh, we could do this so much quicker in the sense of we don't have to
Mhm.
do all that setup on, podcasting just seemed a little bit more complex. I am not a tech person. I know enough to be dangerous, and that's it. So we thought we would start with the awesome journey, put a date on the calendar, and literally went with it. But we're like, the LinkedIn part of our journeys is job seeking. The job market has changed so dramatically in the last 3 years. And, as someone, and I wanted us to be able to share our stories, hey, guess what? I've been a marketing executive a majority of my career. I was laid off the beginning of 2020. Unfortunately, marketing tends to get cut first. Um, and I could not get hired to save my life.
Mhm.
I've always been recruited. People tried to poach me all the time. Like, so, and that always gives you confidence knowing like people want you. So I'm doing something right,
Yes.
and then getting to a place where beginning of 2020, I couldn't, I was laid off and then I could not get hired. I was in a few interview funnels, if you will. And they kept going, hey, now we're going to put this off until after Labor Day, then after the holidays, and after the new year, then after the election. And it was like, and that's now, you're talking 9 months. That's a long time to not work and be isolated. Like
Mm.
I love myself, but I was really over myself. It's like, I need to go. And fortunately, I had a random couple of people reach out and be like, hey, here's what we're looking for. Would you be willing to do this? And of course, it wasn't employee work, it was 1099 contract work. And I was like, I would love to for a
Mhm.
multitude of reasons. Home Fry needs a paycheck, um, and feel purposeful.
Mhm.
And so I really enjoyed it. But the whole point was now I'm a 1099er for a couple of people. And then a few other small projects came along, same type of way. But I never
Mhm.
set up a business. And
Mm.
now that a few of those contracts have ended, um, now I'm sitting kind of going, okay, well, I never planned to have myself be a 1099 or a consultant. But now I'm
Mhm.
building a business backwards because I'm an accidental consultant because of the situation. And so now
Mhm.
it's like, okay, now I need to be reversing going, what do I want my business to look like? What are my services going to be? What is this going to be? Which part of doing the LinkedIn lives and all of these conversations has been so helpful because I think a lot of people became accidental consultants or 1099ers because a lot of
Yeah.
employers aren't hiring anymore.
Mhm.
So I
Yep.
don't know. I think there's a lot that people are looking for, and these conversations are helping me start to go, oh, maybe I can go in a totally different niche if I want to. Truly,
Yeah.
if I do lives all day and get paid for them, I would be all about it. Or
Right?
if
And like you
I
said,
would
a
just,
lot of companies, well, like you said, a lot of companies aren't necessarily hiring full time in the space where you and I sit, right? They're gonna they're gonna hire for sales. They're gonna hire for finance, whatever. They're gonna hire for these areas that they feel are more, I'm using parentheses, quotations, that are more important, right?
uh-huh.
Not realizing that you are the voice of the company
Mhm.
outward, right? What I do is build the voice of the company inward. So you and I are actually extremely vital for a company.
Yes.
But unfortunately, right, we're the last ones to hire, the first ones
Mhm.
to fire. And so, to your point, right, you and I both kind of ended up in this consulting and contracting space so that we can still help companies
Mhm.
even if they don't necessarily get to the point of seeing the value of having somebody like us full time. And
Yeah.
the good companies catch on, right? But, sometimes it takes a little bit, right? It's when like, at least in my space, right? It's when they're like, "Oh, we have so much turnover." Like, "Yeah, you gotta
Mhm.
focus on this other piece," right?
Yeah.
Or with you, right? You're telling that story outward to everybody. And
Mhm.
if that message isn't honed in and defined and made beautiful, well, now you're telling people the wrong message, right? And so
Yes.
it is interesting to kind of end up in this consulting, contracting space. I like that I get to help more companies at
Mhm.
once, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a weird space.
It is. And like Jeff says, and I will 100% agree with this, that the job seeking has changed with even the last 6 months. 100%
Oh,
agree. There have been so
1000%.
many layoffs, which is, and I've talked to so many people, and which is another reason why I want, Christy and I wanted to start to do this and have a job seeker. And in our minds, it was like, we'll get a recruiter and a job seeker, and then they can have a conversation. Job seeker can highlight what they're looking for. A recruiter can help give everyone, information because it has changed. But it's
Yeah.
it's it's playing such a crucial role on people's people are getting in a situation where they can't, they're not even getting an answer. You apply and you never
Mhm.
hear anything, and you apply and you never hear anything, and over and over again that happening, and you're unemployed, you're struggling to pay your bills, and that continues to happen. I mean, that is, it's such a direct impact on people. And this is the part of the whole process that frustrates me a little bit, that I'm like, y'all need to fix this because you are really hurting people. It's not just,
Mhm.
have an automated canned response, for goodness sakes, but just something, not nothing. And there
Mhm.
are, there's so many scams out there with recruiters that aren't really recruiters. They're just taking your resume to pitch you somewhere else so they can get paid. And I mean, it's there's so many different things and facets to go through, and I think what so many people are looking for is, where can I just go and have a conversation, hear what people have to say, ask questions, and just get honest. That
Mhm.
I've struggled with over the years too is recruiters. I'll ask the same question, but I can get so many different answers. And I'm like, so which one is it? Like, I'm not really sure. And you
Mhm.
really have to seek to find a good recruiter. And Jeff is one. I'm in a group chat, and Jeff Witherspoon is one of them that's in there, and I think it's a Daryl Clack's group chat that he has, because it gives me some insight too that we can share here, because I know there's so many people that are struggling, and recruiters also, the bad thing is they do get a bad name, because
Mm.
there's so many that take advantage of the system overall, but there's some great ones out there. I always do shout out my local Staffing Strong in Phoenix, because they've always done a great job for me. I recommend them to anyone. They're fantastic. So um, that took a
What
little
is
bit of turn. What are your thoughts on that portion of it, Kim?
so question, with you giving your shout out to that company, say the name again?
Staffing Strong,
Staffing Strong. What
specifically.
is
Yeah.
it I'm curious to hear what is it about them because as we're having this conversation about recruiters and relationships and getting past resumes, right? This whole conversation is all so important and it's all connected, right? Because that's how we're finding jobs nowadays. And so with this company, what is it that you like about them that they're doing differently in this space maybe?
Well, one, I used them for years to hire people. And
Mhm.
we used to go in, and I would go with our HR director, and we would spend like part of an afternoon.
Okay.
interviewing candidates because we would say, here's the outline of what we're looking for. And it was usually
Mhm.
marketing focused. Um, and they would bring us, their candidates. And our goal was always, and I'm sits in the chair in front of me to want this job when they leave. Like that was just the goal. And you do. And because that's great PR for your company is to have, people be like, I
Mhm.
want to work for this firm. And without, I'm not saying to give them a bunch of BS, but you want to make it feel like we want you here and just to have that feel. But every candidate that they ever sent me was always exactly what I asked for. I've worked with
Mm.
many, many others that I would ask for a candidate and they would send me, 50 resumes. And I'd be like, seriously, what did I hire you for? Like, what am I paying you for? One, I don't have time to read all of these. One, and two, just the first few I read do not apply to what I'm looking for.
Mhm.
So they really vet their candidates of how
Okay.
they apply. They're also, I actually just had a conversation with them last week, and Evelyn Vega is my connection there, on the board of advisors for the American Marketing Association in Phoenix, where I'm also a judge. We just got finished
Nice.
with the awards last a couple weeks ago. Um, I digress. But in any event, they're doing more to help give back to community and figure out how can we do because the job market
Mm.
has changed and people are struggling. And I don't want to put out there because it's not my place. I love what they're doing, and she is someone I'm going to have you have a conversation with because there is some components that you will fit in. But I love when companies are really focused on how can we better help people now because people are really struggling and shift their business based on what's changing and not just based on revenues. Well, we're still
Mm.
sales is still working, so let's keep doing this. But how can we really expand to help community? And I think that's such a important thing to both you and I, Kindra, is we want to help small businesses, business owners, whoever it is, but we also are very passionate about giving back. Beautiful thing, and
Mhm.
I wish more organizations would get into that. And I encourage anyone who is job searching, get involved with a local nonprofit that has some. You will get exposed to things. You will be surrounded by people. It is a worthwhile networking approach. I have made some
Mhm.
of the most incredible contacts, friends through all of my work through nonprofit charity, however you want to say it, and have always
Mhm.
pushed for, in any executive position that I've been in to have a community outreach program for culture on top of it.
Mhm.
'Cause
Yep.
that is a great team building thing.
Oh, absolutely. And it goes back to what John said earlier about, just making those connections. You don't know where they're going to go or who's going to have what information, who's going to have the right connection. It's building, it's visibility, right? Things like this, jumping on to podcasts and LinkedIn lives so that people get to know you in the community, right? That
Mhm.
that really and I'm not a recruiter, but that, is a huge space of how I see people finding and landing jobs is the community connections, right? If you're not out there, then no one really knows that you exist.
Right,
And
that's that
then
whole thing of like the job's not going to come knocking on your door and fall in your lap.
yeah,
You need to get out there and go start seeking it very
yes.
intentionally, though.
I wish the perfect job would just knock on the door.
Right.
Because right? I mean, there is a little bit of, trial and error in this. I've lived back in Arizona for about 6 years now. And prior to living in Arizona, I was with one company for almost 10 years. It was it was great, but I knew that we needed to move back to Arizona to be closer to family. And so making that shift and being in Arizona, I've had just this kind of like misalignment. Either I've had the perfect role with a company that did not have a great culture or flip flop. I've been part of a company that had a great culture, but I wasn't in the right role. Right.
Yeah.
So I continue to try and figure out what's the right match. And it's not going to knock on my door as much as I wish it would.
Right. And
I
kind of to
know.
go yeah, and to go back a little bit on what you were saying before about marketing and culture, because we do so intermingle. Because my feeling was always as a marketer, internal marketing is just as important as external marketing. Because
Mhm.
if you don't have your team mission, vision, goals, you're missing the boat. But one of the things that I
Yeah.
wanted to be sure to go back on, which is such a valid point, and I can't remember where I heard this, is and I don't know the percentage, but you likely do. The percentage of organizations or businesses, however it is, because you don't have to be a big business to have culture, because like Kindra said, you only need two people to have culture, is they'll say how important culture is to them. Oh, it's so important. Like we so want our people to be happy. It means everything to us. And then you
Mhm.
go, so what do you budget for that? Like what's your strategy? And they're like,
Oh, we don't.
well, we don't have one. Well, then don't say it's very important to you because you don't even have a budget line item for it.
Yep. The other part too is when they say, "Oh, but it's so, so important to us." And then I say, "Okay, who on your team oversees the culture?" Like, obviously, right, it's part of leadership and the people, everybody has a part in it, right? But who is overseeing and looking at it from a data perspective and, to your point, a budget perspective?
Right?
And they go, "Oh, well, no, the CEO does." And it's like, "Okay, well,
Mhm.
the CEO has a lot of things on their plate." But the same way you would have a director of sales, right? A chief finance person, a chief engineer, the same way that you would have those titles, right? A VP of marketing, the same way that you would have those people overseeing all of sales, overseeing all of marketing. You should have somebody that is overseeing all of culture and that has a budget. So, it's funny that you say that because I have people say that to me all the time. "Oh, it's really, really important to us." And then I ask those questions and they're like, "Oh, no, well, we all just do it." That's
I mean,
great. And
no.
let's let's do better.
Yes, and I'm not gonna call out this organization, but it is a very large one that we all know and we all got even more familiar with during 2020. So you can put the dots together with that if you wish. When I couldn't get hired, I was like, I've got to get out of my house. I've got to do something because you couldn't go to the gym. I mean, and it was just we were isolated and I was
Mhm.
by myself and I was like, this is driving me absolutely crazy. And I couldn't even get lower level jobs because the response was like, well, you're so overqualified for this. You're only going to stay until the pandemic is over and then you're going to move on. And I couldn't diss them for that because I've interviewed so many people over my career that I was like,
Mhm.
ooh, I understand that. But it didn't make me feel any better. So I took an entry level job. Like I was making an hourly rate. I think I made like it was, but I was like, I just need to get out of the house and I just need to do something. And I was moving.
Yeah.
But the culture was, I mean, horrendous. I mean, it was so awful and dismal, and you could feel it even when you
Mm.
walked in. But it made me laugh because, of course, the marketer in me, and I love culture and I'm all about it, is all over the place. They had all these like keywords all over the lunchroom, how support, caring, yeah, cheering each other on. And I walked into that lunchroom and that's where like all the lockers and stuff were. And I walked in, every single person that was in there was like this. It was like, huh.
We're so welcoming and
I
so
was like, wow,
kind.
this feels superb. Like those words are emulating off the walls into the souls of these people that you have hired. People, it's not words on your lunchroom wall or that you put in the employee handbook. You actually have to take action to make it happen. So I just kind of thought
Mhm.
that was a funny thing for me. And someday I probably will write an article on it because I'm telling you, it was like, whoa, I
Ooh,
could not
if
believe
you
this
write
stuff.
it, we'll post it as a blog through Culture Crush.
Yes, yes, we will.
I love it. Um, I know that we only have a few minutes. You and I could probably have recorded conversations all day long about
Oh, yes,
topics of
no doubt.
culture and resumes and recruiting and awesome journeys and things like that. While we have a few minutes, do you want to tell everyone about your guest? I mean, it's not your guest host, but I guess it's going to be your amazing Christy back. Who do you and Christy have on the show next week?
Next week, and Christy will be back from her 3 weeks in Asia. So she will be back with us. So I'm so excited. But again, can't thank Kindra enough for
Yay!
stepping
I
in. You
know.
are fantastic. And especially like today when we just like had to roll with it, like on so many
Sure.
different levels, which kind of makes me chuckle, but I can't help it. But next week, we will have Ed Hahn, who is a recruiter, and he refers to himself as a talent acquisition geek. So, anyone that has geek or
Ooh.
nerd in their title, like I'm for you all day long.
Yes.
And he is also a contributor for jobhunting.com. So,
Okay.
he will have some fantastic insight for any job seekers who are out there. If you have any questions, please come, please ask, send us DMs in advance if you that wants to be
Yeah.
highlighted at some point, if you're a recruiter that wants to come on at some point. Because our very first show, we did match a recruiter with a job seeker, and just the job seeker kind of highlighted what their struggles were, and the recruiter gave some input on what they could do to help better their search, which of course helps so many more people than just that one person. But it also
Mhm.
helped highlight the person. So that's what we wanted to
Mm.
do is how can we come up with a creative way to highlight job seekers? Because exactly what you said earlier, Kendra, reading someone's profile is totally different than getting to see you and I talk. Because I've
Mhm.
always said my entire life, because my father in business definitely raised me right in this, is get in front of someone and I will get the job. Like because you see the personality and the passion. Because I always went after jobs that I wanted, and I will
Mhm.
say, I don't. It was very rare, and I can't even think I wanted it. I got it, but that's because I got in
Mhm.
front of people, and you're removing that component. And I know so many other people are struggling from the same thing. So hey, if you want it,
Mhm.
DM us. We're happy to have a conversation and bring you on. So that will be our next week. And again, I just want to Kindra, for you to say, your wrap up, and then I will do final. But I can't thank you enough for your time and doing this. It's been so much fun for me. And you guys, we have more projects that are coming up that we're working together.
I know I'm looping Kelly in on more things in my space. I'm just so excited that I get to do these different adventures with you. It's so neat to go from 2 years ago, bringing you on a podcast, not knowing you well, and now we get to overlap, we get to collaborate, and I feel like you and I should be a package deal for a company to hire. You get
And
you get
even on a
a
contract,
yeah, yeah.
love
So
it.
we'll do like a joint resume. This is the package deal of what you get. You need both of us. But I'm so excited. So I'm excited to have Christy back, but I had a blast filling in while she's been gone.
Me too. And thanks for rolling with the punches today. Amy Looper, we are again so sorry that we had some technical difficulties, but we will have her back because she does
Mhm.
have an incredible story that I know will be helpful, touching, inspiring, motivational to so many of you. So I'll be sure to, or we'll be sure to let you know when that's rescheduled. But until then, we will be back next Tuesday at 1:11 p.m. Eastern Time. And y'all, if you are getting a link that's going to a different time zone, I have no idea what's happening, but we're trying to figure it out. But 1:11 Eastern Time next Tuesday. Christy Howard, my co-host and care, will be back. And again, don't miss it. Thank you all for joining, and continue to enjoy your awesome journey.